Hello, welcome to Dungeon Rollers Podcast. I'm your host, Justin. Today, for Christmas month, we have a comic book review. Howard Chaykin's The Shadow, Midnight in Moscow, published by Dynamite. This came out in, I think, like 2015. At least that's what it said when I looked it up online. So, this is one of the 6 graphic novels I have of The Shadow. I already reviewed, The Fires of Creation on this channel for Halloween month. Was it for Halloween month? Yeah, I did. Why did I review The Shadow for Halloween month? I don't know. I just felt like it. So yeah, this is based off the radio play character, which for not Halloween, but in October I did listen to one of the radio plays, late horror show on YouTube, who is uploading, used to be a review channel for reviewing horror movies and stuff, which I think they still do, but nowadays they just upload old radio plays and stuff. A lot of Shadow radio plays. And yeah, so I listened to one. It was okay. Yeah, so this one, Howard Chaykin, for people who don't know, who does the story and art, which is very rare for for comic books. Do you have a writer who does not just the script but also the art? Very rare nowadays. Yeah, Howard Chaykin is considered the Frank Miller of Shadow Comics. He wrote not only this one, but Blood and Judgment, which is considered the Batman Returns of Shadow Comics. I tried reading it and did not like it at all. At all, but it was maybe it was because I hadn't read enough, even though before I read that one, I read the Year One Omnibus, and I read, The Shadow versus Grendel, which is both written by Matt Wagner, who I reviewed one of his graphic novels, The Tower Chronicles. If you want that, I also did for Halloween month, which, check that out. So I don't know, Howard Chaykin, I don't know, I'm not a fan of his writing, to be honest, because he narrates too fucking much, to be honest, and he's very, political, to the point where it's hard to tell. He's clearly champagne socialist, but what kind of socialist? Well, I don't know for sure if he's a socialist, but he comes off very left wing leaning, and I, people trash there's in the 2000s there was these series of movies called Epic Movie, Scary Movie. There was one Date Movie. Those were comedy movies that were really shitty, and they would just randomly reference other movies, popular movies at the time and pop culture stuff. It was very referential humor. Yet, you have these writers who will reference, literature and shit like that, shit from the great American writers. Which, if you go to writing school or whatever, you go to university to learn how to be a writer, usually, have to get a literary degree, they make you read that shit, so it's I don't see how, it's, this guy constantly referenced, that shit, and it's I guess the idea is, you're smart if you get those references, because those are high IQ books or whatever. But if it's mandatory reading in American schools and university, because I even think they make you read that shit. Everybody, I've heard people talk about how I've heard Americans talk about how every school they make you read Catcher in the Rye and shit like that, right? So it's I don't see how that makes you high IQ if you read certain books. It's that is practically mandatory reading. It's I don't get it. That's dumb to me. But like, yeah, to get onto the review, it's basically Watchmen. Like at first I was confused as fuck. It takes place late December, which is why I reviewed it for Christmas month because I figured, oh, this is gonna be like a Christmas uh, shadow book when really it's not. It's more like takes place more on New Year's. Basically, the shadow is getting old. It's 1949. It's near the end of the year. He's thinking of retiring. He stumbles onto a bank heist where this guy who calls himself the Prince of Evil, Benedict Stark, tries to rob the Federal Reserve, which is filled with gold bars. Which I've heard the Federal Reserve hasn't had gold in its gold there in like decades, but I could be wrong. That could be Fort Knox. I could be mixing it up with Fort Knox. I'm 100% sure. Where he tries to rob the Federal Reserve, he has this strange gun with him. The Shadow, who is pretty much a lot like the Punisher, where he kills criminals and shit. Drops a bunch of gold on the criminals. Thinks he killed like Benedict Stark. Leaves the place. Finds some miniature gold bars, and after a while realizes that there's some weird shit going on. MI6 is also interested in Benedict Stark. Benedict Stark. Lamont Cranston, aka the Shadow, aka Kent Howard, is at a party with Margot Lane, his top agent, which the Shadow has like people that work for him, kind of like the Phantom, where like if the Phantom saves somebody's life, he'll like give them a mark or like called I forget what it's called, but it's like the protection of the Phantom, which makes him like makes it so he'll protect you throughout your life, but you owe him favors. Shadow does that too, but like it's like you work for him for like he'll save your life and then you work for him for life, basically. All right. So like yeah, like most of the book takes place in like New York and Europe, and then like at the end it takes place in Moscow. But I'm getting too ahead of myself. The villains of this book are like American chick from Texas who's like kind of a like slutty like rogue agent character, and this MI6 guy who developed this technology to miniaturize objects, which it takes like the Shadow like more than halfway through the book, or I would say about halfway through the book, to realize that's what's going on, even though like he saw Benedict Stark still alive. Sorry, I skipped that at the party and saw that he was like an inch shorter. There was like a point where like the bad guys send like an assassin into like his room, and like he like got in through like shrinking himself in through the doorway or some shit. I don't fucking know. And unminiaturizing himself to kill the Shadow, but like didn't see it. The Shadow didn't see it. So eventually, it turns out the whole reason why the miniaturization device was created was not just to for like for people to rob, to be used in crime, right? But it's to smuggle nuclear weapons into both the New York and the what's the Kremlin's castle, right? Or not castle, palace, right? Where like Stalin lives, and Stalin has a cameo in the book. The Shadow saves Stalin and criticizes the whole like communist system, how they're like the elites there are like traitors to Marxist ideals, which is like, this is coming from a yuppie vigilante. So it's like, you're kind of a hypocrite. Plus like there's different kinds of fucking Like, I'm not even a leftist, and I know this. There's different kinds of fucking communism, where there are versions of communism that has elites. Because you're not gonna have people who take up jobs where there's a shitload of responsibility, a shitload of work, without some kind of, incentive. That's why communism on paper, like Marxist communism, which, like, he says Russia is like the birthplace of communism. One Russia, like, sorry, like not, sorry, communism is the birthplace. Communism's birthplace was in Russia. Wrong, retard. Communism was created by a German guy who, like, which Germans created socialism, right? Like the German, there's these German like ideological like writers and shit who formed like this club. I forget what it's called. Like, the Campbot can tell you all about it. And they thought when Marxism was created by Karl Marx, they thought it was fucking retarded. The people who thought that women could just be able to, like, be great soldiers as men. It's just social, like, norms and constraints that limit their ability. Thought that, like, also thought that Marxism was fucking retarded, right? Jesus Christ. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So the book, I don't know. Like, also the Texan slut bitch who is like a double agent turns out to be a crazy communist and tries to blow up. Yeah, it is the mastermind behind, like, trying to blow up both Russia and New York, which, I can't blame her. Fuck New York. I'm just kidding. But yeah, like, I really don't like New York or California. But yeah, so it's like, I don't know. It's like the book is very political, and it's just, and there's this one shot where, like, I kind of hate the narration, because, like, the narration, it's like, it doesn't just talk about what's going on, right? But it also talks about shit that happens in the future. And then there's like in the second, I think it's the second issue, like, it's the Shadows talking about New York, or like the narrator is. I'm not 100% sure if there's the same person. And there's like a panel where it talks about, like, there's a panel where there's the Twin Towers, and it's like, it implies that, the Twin Towers being like destroyed was like a good thing, which is kind of fucked up, because, like, as much as I don't like New York, doesn't mean, like, it's like a good fucking thing that New York was destroyed. So, like, the page here is: the island of Manhattan is approximately 13 miles and 2 miles wide. On any given day, over 8 million people make their way through its concrete canyons. Men and women from all walks of life, representing all faiths, as well as a sizable swarm of the utterly faithless. In that panel, there's like the Twin Towers, which is, I'm like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, so, like, I don't know. So, like, a subplot in the book, like I mentioned, is the Shadow wants to retire. He gives, like, a little, what's it called? Like, when you let people go and you give them, like a bonus or whatever. I can't remember. Like, severance. He gives severance to all his, like, agents and shit. And, like, in the end of the fucking book, he, like, he, like, leaves, like, Margot at the restaurant they were having dinner at, which was a French restaurant, and, like, leaves her a letter. So I guess this book could be seen as, even though it came out later than Blood and Judgment, which came out in the 80s, this one could be almost seen as, like, a prequel to, like, Blood Blood and Judgment was, if you read it, it's very like anti-capitalist, like American, which like I'm not pro-capitalism myself. I think capitalism has like gone over control, and it's like it's supposed to be a free market, but it's like obviously it's not a free market. There are people who like um will like try to like limit, like will fuck with people who try to make money on certain things or whatever, right? Um, like if you're part of an ideology that the elites or whoever who runs the fucking economy don't like, they will fuck with you and try to, uh, like deperson you, like take, like make sure you don't have a bank account, which happened to the fucking Proud Boys, which they keep getting called. I'm not a Proud Boy, but it's like, to me, it's like they're just civic nationalists. There's nothing wrong with civic nationalism, but they get fucked with and called like a white nationalist fucking group when they have like their leader is like Mexican. But yeah, it's fucked up. So like yeah, if I were to give this book a rating, one it's 6 issues. And I paid like almost $30 for this. I paid like $26.95. That's a bit much, but like that's modern day like pricing for like 6-issue graphic novels. There's no real bonus material at all. You get like like a script and like some storyboards. I don't know. Like I didn't really like this book. Like, honestly, I enjoyed even though Fire Over Creations was offensive to me, it was, like, better than this. And, like, the Matt Wagner Shadow stuff, though it's kind of mediocre, at least, that it was more fun, right? Where here, it just feels like, when I read this book, I'm being talked down to, and, like, a lot of the shit he's talking about just goes way over my head. So if I were to give this a rating, I would give it's a 6.5. There was some entertaining stuff in this book, but it's just like, I don't know, dude. Like, Howard Chaykin, I'm not a fan of his shadow work. Yeah, so like, if I do review another shadow graphic novel, it's probably going to be the Batman one, the Batman crossover. Because though as much as I would like to review like the Volume 1 Omnibus Shadow book, Year 1 Omnibus, it's like it was a piece of shit as soon as I got it from after I ordered, because it was like fucking the cover was falling apart, pages were falling apart. It's like they had an old like graphic novel at the factory or whatever warehouse where they were keeping it. And it's just like they handed it to me. So it's like, what the fuck. But yeah, so tomorrow I was going to review the Gintama Christmas episode, but I decided to wait till Friday, because Friday I have a special video I'm going to put out. So yeah, so tomorrow I will be reviewing Batman Returns, and then on Saturday and Sunday we're going to review both Black Christmas movies. The original and the 2006 remake. Alright,